First of all, and I think these might fall off, but we'll try it. I think this one might be better, because that's... I apologize for the delay that it's taken us to get back to you. Judge Hatfield made her decision a week ago this afternoon, but we really didn't have anything to say, and I needed to do a lot of work so that I could come before you and give you information, talk about what we have to say. We try to be as responsive as possible, but we knew that you would have a lot of questions and wanted to be able to give you the answer. You know, much has been said, especially from one media outlet, why we just didn't conflict the case out to begin with. It's easy, just conflict it out once the motion was filed. And I want to let you all know that it wasn't quite that easy, and that when the motion to conflict our office out in the Boyd case, I'm referring to the Boyd case obviously, I started looking for special prosecutors in anticipation of what may or may not happen. It's our job to always be ready and to solve the problem before it gets too big. And I did start looking for special prosecutors, and in fact, we didn't have any takers at that point in time. And it wasn't because people didn't care or people weren't aware of the responsibility to the public or people didn't want to help. It's just that we're all dealing with such limited resources that we didn't have anyone that could really pitch in and help. Also, the second concern was money. And I'm certainly not saying that you can put any price on justice, because I agree, there is no price on justice. But in running an office, the largest law firm in the state of New Mexico, with a substantial budget, a substantial responsibility, it's my duty to spend every penny that we have as wisely as we can so that we can handle the 20-some-odd thousand cases that come through our office. You all are aware of the new CMO, or case management order, that went into effect on February 2nd. That's tremendously strained our resources, and we've been in the media talking about it. We've talked to all of you about that. And we had asked the legislature for over $1.2 million to fund 16 positions to help us deal with that CMO. We really needed at least double that. We knew we weren't going to get it, so we asked for half of what we needed. In fact, we got $1,000 or $150,000, substantially less. So that was weighing on us clearly. How are we going to do everything that we're supposed to do as responsibly as the public needs us to do it, and then deal with special prosecutors and that cost? I don't know if you remember, but years ago, the Attorney General was in a position where they had to hire a special prosecutor, and I don't know the amount, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I just knew that our budget could not do that, and so we were looking for a responsible solution. But once again, I do appreciate that there's no dollar amount on justice, and it was up to us to find a solution. That's why I get paid the big bucks, right? You know, it's important to note too, and we've had a lot of questions about the court's order. We've read through the order. It's important to note that she didn't say that we had a conflict of interest, but she said we had an appearance of a conflict of interest. And to you all, that may not seem like a big deal. To the public, obviously, it's not a big deal. But legally speaking, that's a huge deal. If there's an appearance of a conflict, and thus she ordered that I find a special prosecutor on this case. What is at issue is perhaps, and I want to address it, confront it head on, because that's how I do things, that there may be some retaliation. And once again, she talks about media sources and some hint of retaliation because I may have criticized some aspect of the criminal justice system. And I want to assure you, this isn't going to be real exciting, it's not going to be sensational, but it's the truth, that I would never react or retaliate against anyone in my position as district attorney. I like to think I would never do it, just as a human being, as a mother, as a sister, as a daughter. I grew up, and you all have heard this story many times, when my dad was in the district attorney's office. And there were times that, and I talked to my dad about this last night, that people would come to our house and ask for search warrants or have to have my dad sign off when he was an assistant DA. And they'd always go to the living room. Those were the days when we had living rooms where you weren't allowed to go into them. But Dad would go sit at the table, and I would be a little kid, usually in my pajamas, as I recall. And I'd just look at police officers and think, wow. I mean, like, they were so important. They were more important than my father was as an assistant district attorney. And that was the beginnings of my feeling good and having confidence and believing in the credibility of law enforcement. As a defense attorney for 20 years, I worked with law enforcement. You know, and some people will say, well, they're your enemies. Well, no, they weren't. They were doing their job, and I would talk to them, and I don't think you could find a single law enforcement officer out on the streets that could say I was short, rude, impolite, discourteous, or anything to them during my 20 years as a defense attorney. I would suggest the same thing today, and if you look at my 14 years as district attorney. I really value our ability to be team players with every agency that we have to work with. There are times that we disagree, there are times that we criticize, there are times that we struggle to try to bring the bar up higher, but there has never been, and I say that without an ounce of doubt in my mind, any retaliation. There is not room for retaliation in this job and with our responsibilities. I have worked cooperatively, you know, with the police department, the Albuquerque Police Department, for the last 14 years. And again, this isn't sensational, but we're still working with them every day. And we have been working with them diligently on the case management order and trying to get all the discovery that we need. We couldn't do this job without them. We couldn't prosecute the cases that we prosecute. So I want the record to be clear that we would never prosecute anyone, no matter who they are, including police officers, without just and legal cause. Our goal in filing the charges was simply to set the foundation for a preliminary hearing, and the judge would be making the decision. Now, we could have proceeded to the grand jury and have controlled the entire process, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted a level playing field, and so what we did is we decided we're going to file these charges, we're going to go to prelim, so all of you all can be included in the process, the public can be included, and we're not even going to make the decision. We're going to let a court make the decision. Before we did that, we contacted the defense attorneys, and we said, we'll give you whatever you need. What do you want? This is our timing, this is what we plan to do, and this is when we plan to do it, in a very cooperative spirit. No retaliation whatsoever. And that's the way we do business. That's the way we've done business for 14 years. That's the way I've done business my entire career. And that's the way we will continue to do business. Regardless of what others do, we are always going to take the high road. That doesn't mean that we're not going to critique and we're not going to work, again, as I said, to raise the bar and have a better system. We are not going to appeal Judge Hatfield's order. Why? We think our community and the officers need a resolution in this case. And I'm going to deviate a little bit because I have you all here. Our community needs answers to many questions. In case you haven't noticed, and I don't watch the news and I don't read the paper, but I even know this. We're in crisis. We are in a crisis that I'm not sure we can recover from. We are in a crisis that I'm not sure we'll recover from. If we do, in my lifetime, this is the time, and I say this from my heart, and I say it because I believe it, and I say it because I've believed it for a while. This is a time for each of us, and I mean every one of you as an individual, every one of you as part of the media. Everyone. all elected officials, of which I am one, all government agencies, and then you all, as the media, to step up and be the best that we can be. If we care about our community and if we care about each other. We need to work together for solutions. We need to maintain our focus on a solution and not a controversy. I know it's not sensational, it's not sexy, but I really think our community, whether or not we survive, whether or not we make it, whether or not we leave our children a world that we would want to live in depends upon it. And to do what is right, to always do what is right, risking what the personal consequences may be. And I've been in kind of a bind in the last 4 months. Do I do what is right per my oath of office? Or do I do what is right for me as a human being with constitutional rights? And that's a problem. But there comes a time when we really don't matter, but the bigger picture doesn't matter, and we have to do what is right. I can find an example of someone who did that in the last couple of weeks, maybe in the last month. Everybody knows about a situation that happened with the Albuquerque Police Department, and it's been in the news this week. And someone came forward and said something wrong happened. I believe it was a cadet that came forward and said, I witnessed something, and it was wrong. And now we're working towards a resolution in that situation. That's what we need people to do. Now, the personal sacrifice that person made, I don't know. I understood that there's a chance that person may have already resigned as a cadet. That's a huge consequence. But the good that came from that courageous act is something that we need to be aware of and that we need to focus on. We should all welcome, and I mean this, the light of day and individuals coming forward with the truth so that we can be successful. And it shouldn't be viewed simply as retaliation. If somebody comes forward and says something, if somebody comes forward in my office and says, you know what, this case was handled wrong, I should look at that and accept that and learn from it and view it as constructive criticism and not as retaliation, and I reject it and I'm not going to talk about it. You all know what I'm talking about. To do so, to criticize constructively, doesn't mean that we don't care or we're retaliating. It means that we care. It could mean that we love. And we want to be part of the solution. When one door closes, another one opens. It's amazing how that works. And I'm old enough. When I was younger, I didn't believe that. I've lived long enough to believe that. And when the court disqualified us last Thursday, I got to work. And not very hopeful that another door would be open, but it was. And I am pleased to inform you that Randy McGinn has agreed to be the special prosecutor in the Boyd case. All the necessary paperwork, I take it, Kayla, has been filed, and I would like to read you a press conference from her office. And I think she did try to avoid you guys just because she's going to be working hard, and she's got a lot going on. This is a press conference for Randy McGinn's office. After learning that the Attorney General's, and I need to say first that we first offered this case to the Attorney General's office. I wrote a letter to Hector Balderas and I said I believe that he should have the first option with the case if he felt it was appropriate. And he declined and said that he had a conflict of interest. So then we sought other counsel. So I'm reading Randy McGinn's press release. After learning that the Attorney General's office and several district attorneys' offices around the state have declined to review and take up the prosecution of the two men who shot James Boyd on March 16, 2014, our law office has decided to step up to investigate the case. It is important that the first prosecution of a police shooting caught on videotape be handled in a manner that promotes confidence in our criminal justice system. No one should be above the law, and every Albuquerque citizen, whether a homeless man in the mountains or a police officer patrolling its streets, should be allowed the due process protections afforded by that same law. Although we are often on the opposite side of the District Attorney Kari Brandenburg and the dedicated prosecutors in her office, we are grateful to her for the opportunity to help the community learn how this shooting death occurred. Our firm will not bill by the hour for the hundreds of hours of work this case will require. Instead, we will charge the Bernalillo County District Attorney's Office for the same fee paid to the contract public defenders for handling an entire murder case, a total of $5,400, plus actual out-of-pocket costs. The flame of justice goes out if there is no one to tend to it. Ladies and gentlemen, I would suggest that we all have a responsibility to tend to that flame. And I ask that you all be part of the solution, individually and in your jobs and your responsibilities in the community. I want to thank you for your attention to this matter, and I look forward to your fair and accurate reporting in the future.